Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this virtual tour of the Roman Forum and the Palatine Hill. As students of the Rome Center, the Roman Forum and the Palatine Hill are rites of passage for us. For a lot of us, they're the first stops that we make on our orientation trips. When we first arrived as students, I know that was one of my first stops, and such a wonderful introduction to a city that I now call a second home for me. So before we get started, I just wanted to thank you all from joining us today. And I also wanted to thank all of you for your continued support of the Rome Center during these trying times. I know that as alums of an institution, it's really hard to stay connected, but hopefully with virtual events like these, we can continue to keep you engaged. And we're always open to your feedback. Just some general housekeeping for us all. I believe I would ask you all to keep your microphones muted, just out of respect for the presenter. We will hopefully have some time at the end of it to connect with Dr. Evers if that's something that you would like to do. I know Sonder has been super excited to connect with some of you, and some of you may even be getting some shout outs throughout this. So excited for that for sure. This is a very new format for us, even now, 10, 11 months later. We've never done a virtual tour like this. So, anything goes right now. So I ask for your continued patience as we try to figure out this crazy technology. We're doing our best that we can in order to keep this educational, but also engaging for you all. And I think that we have a good lecturer in Sonder for that. So without further ado, let's get started. First of all, would like to play some remarks by our current director, Dr. Michael Andrews.
Buongiorno tutti colleghi e amici of the John Felice Rome Center. My name is Dr. Michael Andrews, the director of the JFRC, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this very special virtual alumni gathering of our Rome Center community. As you know, the JFRC has been suspended since we sent students back around March 1st, 2020, due to the coronavirus pandemic and its devastating effects here in Italy. Although we've just been informed that the center and all of Loyola's study abroad programs will remain closed at least until fall 2021, we come together today to honor the memory of our founder, John Felice, by celebrating friendships forged over 6 decades. I want to take a moment to thank Janet Myers and members of the Alumni Board, as well as staff from LUC Alumni Relations and Advancement, who helped make this gathering possible. Special thanks also to Professor Sonder Evers, who will be leading our virtual pilgrimage through the Forum Romanum. On a more personal note, thanks also to the dozens, even hundreds, of alumni who have reached out to support the JFRC over the past year, and even to me personally. No one could have ever imagined the impact of COVID-19 on the Rome Center. Italy remains under curfew, under restrictions, with ongoing political scandals, economic catastrophe, and impending government collapse, along with a brand new prime minister. It almost feels like we're heading back to normal. On behalf of all our faculty and staff, who mostly remain smart working from home, thank you for your continuing financial support, but mostly thank you for your prayers and friendship. Although Loyola's new provost is in the midst of reorganizing the academic and study abroad units of the university, including the JFRC, I remain deeply honored to be able to serve as the JFRC director from 2017 to 21. I look forward to joining with all of you for the 60th anniversary celebrations and continuing to support the mission of the JFRC, a mission close to my heart. I also look forward to ensuring a smooth transition with the new director. In the meantime, stay safe and keep your loved ones close. Let us continue to pray for each other and to ask John Felice's prayers and guidance in all we do. Pace e bene. Enjoy today's special JFRC alumni guest lecture. God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Andrews. So now, without further ado, the man of the hour, who really needs no introduction, but please join me in welcoming Mr. Sexy Rebel, or Dr. Sexy Rebel himself, Tonder Evers. Silent applause.
From the flight deck, ladies and gentlemen, your first officer speaking. Heidi hi. All of you who have been on buses with me in the past know that if I say Heidi hi, you say hody ho. It's going to be. And also, yes, sorry, Pedro, I have to start my video. I can't see a thing, but here we are. This is incredibly exciting to be here with you this afternoon, or rather this evening for our side of the big pond, and for a virtual tour of the Roman Forum. As Pedro already indicated, this is an experiment, a technological experiment, a journey through time and space, but then cyberspace. So I would say, let's just roll. Let's get this show on the road. We are going to see the list that you have here on your screens, and just, snapshots of the Roman Forum. And Pedro, let's roll.
As is customary of any trip that we take in Rome, a bus ride is always important to the experience, right?
Indeed, indeed. So let's have a bus.
So let's have a bus. Let's put ourselves in that mindset. Let's go on a fun little bus ride.
All right, and as I already said, from the flight deck, thank you for flying with us. I will be flying this thing today. For all of you who have asked for a shout out over the last few weeks, Courtney, Beverly, Amanda, Jack, Jim, Karen, Megan, Brian, Katie, John, Christina, Leonard, Ed, Tom, Dana, Pedro, you too. Sorry, we can't do this, but there's too many of us here. A short bus ride will get us to the forum, where we will get off our bus at the famous Aqua Claudia, and then move on to the Palatine Hill, the palaces on the Palatine Hill, the House of Augustus, and also some of the earliest remains of Rome itself, although you can't really see them. I do apologize. But the thing about all these antiquities is that you have to basically use your imagination. I don't know how vivid imagination can get, but fun bus ride, yes. Anyway, so use your imagination when you see all these wonderful things. Next slide, please, Pedro, the first one. Aqua Claudia. What have the Romans ever done for us? Well, the aqueducts is one of those famous lines. The aqueducts here, the Aqua Claudia, built by the Emperor Claudius, hence the name attached to the aqueduct, which was built for the very specific reason to supply the Palatine Hill, not with drinking water. That's readily available wherever you are. You just dig a hole, a well, and bring up your water. But aqueducts have always been built throughout Roman history as also instruments of propaganda, but particularly to carry water from one place to another for monumental use. So you have to think of all the baths that the Romans created. What have the Romans ever done for us? Well, the baths also is one very peculiar function of these aqueducts, and also for fountains. So public use, monumental use of water in all these places where the Romans went. And you just have to imagine, you're a poor little Gaul, you've just been conquered, and the Romans come along, soldiers first, they leave, the builders stay behind, and they're building these gigantic aqueducts. And here you are, recently conquered by the mighty Roman Empire, and you think, crikey, this is what they do, this is what they can build, this is where I actually also want to belong to. So aqueducts, incredibly important. But leading up to the Palatine Hill, as I said, built in the 1st century, in the 40s of the 1st century by the Emperor Claudius, to supply the houses of the emperors, not yet a palace. So this is a very important distinction we have to make with the Palatine Hill, occupied from the very beginning of Rome. It is one of the original 7 hills of Rome, obviously, and I'm sure you still all know them. Palatine, Capitoline, what are the other 5? I don't know, never mind. So get up to the Palatine Hill here, and next slide, please, Pedro, where we are walking to the house of Augustus. Indeed, next, please. And up to that house of Augustus. Augustus, this is actually what you see, remains of the walls of the palace of Emperor Domitian. So you're already 100 years into the Roman Empire. I'm sure you still know all your dates of Rome. Legendary foundation date of Rome, 21st of April, 753 BC. Ruled by 7 kings at first, then Rome becomes a republic from 509 BC to 27 BC, and in 27 it does turn into an empire because a chap called Octavian actually becomes Augustus, and therefore effectively the first emperor of Rome, even though he's always denied, I'm not an emperor, I'm just a guy who restored the Roman Republic. It's you who are calling me Augustus. It's you who, you're all saying I'm a god. I never said I was a god. But anyway, Augustus bought a simple house on the Palatine Hill in the year 36 BC. Roman Republic, no empire yet. He simply bought a villa. 100 years later, it's the Emperor Domitian who then decided that he had to construct his majestic palace on the Palatine Hill. And sadly, all that we see today are just the remains of a massive podium, which Emperor Domitian built on top of the Palatine Hill, a block, basically, a building block as a support for a palace on top. These little stumps that you see are just the remains of walls of the actual palace, but below you have this massive podium through which the Emperor Domitian, building a podium over the Palatine Hill, basically led us to the preservation of also the house of Augustus. So next slide, please, Pedro. And this is part of what is left of that house, with on the slopes of the Palatine Hill, you basically have to imagine, use your imagination, I warned you beforehand, your imagination will tell you that there is a straight line running all the way across. The podium was built over these remains of the house of Augustus, where a lot of things are actually happening. So the house of Augustus has been preserved thanks to the block of the Emperor Domitian, but also very, very importantly, and this is archaeology of the last few decades, where you see those roofs in the background are the remains of the Romulean huts, or the huts of Romulus. Romulus, founder of the city of Rome, 21st of April, 753 BC, yada, yada, yada. Huts that are actually dated to the mid-8th century BC. And already in Republican times, Romans had some sort of sense of their own history and said, well, there's a wall here, which was built by Romulus. Whether that actual wall in Roman Republican times was built by Romulus is doubtful. But the important thing is that the Romans had this sense of this is where it all began for us. Archaeologists went to dig and actually found those remains of mid-8th century BC Iron Age huts. Now, that's incredibly exciting that Augustus, who buys, or Octavian, who buys a house, then becomes Augustus, who claims he's a direct descendant of Romulus himself, buys a house which is actually located, turns out, on top of the remains of those huts where it all began. And so that mythological or legendary figure of Romulus begins to make an archaeological sense. The story of a guy who founds the city on 21st of April, 753 BC, I'm not so sure. But then the fact that the oldest remains of Rome are actually found in this particular corner of the Palatine Hill, going back to roughly around that legendary foundation date of Rome. Spot on. You have a story, you have a text, so to speak, and here's the context. So text and context all of a sudden match, and that's the remarkable thing about this whole magical city in which we live and work, and you've spent considerable amounts of time and which you still carry with you. Next slide, please, Pedro. Just a peek through a window. Literally, this wasn't open to a public when I was down there taking these pictures, and also you're not supposed to take pictures. So through a glass, not very sharp, not very focused, but just an impression of some of the incredible wall paintings in this house, which actually turns out to be Augustus's study. So the man sat there, read his books, wrote his laws, sent out his decrees, tweeted, or no, maybe not. But anyway, this is just remarkable artwork, and also a detail of what the French call the trompe l'œil, the trick of the eye, where it is almost as if you're looking through a window and two ladies are on the other side of that window. House of Augustus, remarkable place. Next one, please, Pedro. On to the Arch of Titus. Titus, next one, please. Titus, oh, here's some hopefully moving images, or video as Pedro calls it, but where I can't see. Oh yeah, it's moving. Footage from when you were students, so it seems, VHS or other ways of recording things, but now it froze. The Arch of Titus. Titus, a remarkable chap, emperor for only 2 years, hence only a small arch. Supposedly didn't have more time. Actually, Titus never ever built the arch. It wasn't him. It is the Arch of Titus, yes, dedicated to, and you see it here, Senatus Populusque Romanus, SPQR. Yes, you're all familiar with those terms. SPQR, Senate and People of Rome, dedicated this to the divine Titus, son of the divine Vespasian. Thank you very much indeed. It's not, it looks like a triumphal arch. You might think, of course it's a triumphal arch, right? We know this stuff. We see it in Paris. The French one, like, Arch of Titus, too small. What do? Arc de Triomphe in the middle of Paris, blown up. Here you have it. So the Arch of Titus, basically, people always thought it was a triumphal. I just keep on talking, I'm sorry. Yes, there we are. Wonderful. So the Arch of Titus, next one, please, Pedro, because people always thought, because of the sculpted relief. How do you say it in English? Relief.
Relief.
Relief. It's a, never mind. This sculpted thing there, where people always thought that's why it's a triumphal arch. But the triumphal arch, as you see, the Arch of Titus here on the right, should have been on the Via Sacra. That's where I was. So the Via Sacra, the sacred road across the Forum, all the way from the beginning up to the Capitoline Hill, one of the 7 original hills of Rome, where the temple of Jupiter Optimus Maximus, the supreme god of the Romans, was positioned. And so the Via Sacra leading up to the temple of Jupiter, any triumphal arch, a real triumphal arch, would have been on the Via Sacra. This is by the Via Sacra, because the Via Sacra is just running to the left of this little thing. It's too small as a triumphal arch also. We do have from antiquity, and some of you may record this, we do have from antiquity images of 6 arches. 3 in the front, the Arch of Augustus, which is in the middle of the Forum, only bits and pieces, rubble, sexy rubble, remaining. The Arch of Constantine, which is outside the Forum, and the Arch of Septimius Severus in the Forum. We'll end at the Arch of Septimius. Those 3 arches in the front row, so to speak, of this 4th century AD image. 3 other arches Vespasian's, Titus' arch, and Domitian's arch, second row. Now, the Arch of Vespasian, no idea. Never been found, no indications. Where was the Arch of Vespasian? The Arch of Titus in the image from the 4th century looks exactly like this one. The Arch of Domitian, never heard of it. No archaeological trace, no description. Where was it positioned? No idea. Looks similar to the Arch of Titus. Now, the famous Italian archaeologist Coarelli came up with an idea that we should actually excavate. We should excavate, because if you look at what's below the Arch of Titus, the layers supporting the Arch of Titus, the bit of grass that you just see in the front of this picture and more rubble underneath the grass, it's just a whole pile sitting there opposite the Arch of Titus, which is supported by a similar pile of rubble. And then in front of the Arch of Titus, and potentially that pile, could it have been the base of the Arch of Domitian? The front of it actually also has a few bits and pieces lying around. Obviously, Rome is full of bits and pieces lying around. And so the idea is that perhaps the width of this whole thing is wide enough for an Arch of Vespasian, a smaller Arch of Titus to the side, and a smaller Arch of Domitian to the side. So you would have had, here we are, 2 small arches to the side, 1 larger arch to the front. What we're looking at is a U-shaped structure, also found in this pile of rubble, which could have been the monumental entrance to the palace on the Palatine Hill, which was built by Domitian. And so rather than a triumphal arch, you have 3 arches united, being a monumental entrance by the Via Sacra to the Emperor's Palace on top of the Palatine Hill. So some of the latest archaeological theories just flying around, and I thought I'd share that with you. Next one, Pedro, please. Thank you. And if I'm not mistaken, yes, the Basilica of Maxentius, one of my absolute favorites. Please, next one. One of my absolute favorites. Here we are, some moving images from the 1970s or 80s, and this very famous model, although it's, come on, it's not, ooh, yep, there we are, it's moving. The next slide, please. That's probably easier than the video, because it, yeah, the Basilica of Maxentius, majestic. Now, if I say Basilica, you will probably go, church, because we all know the Basilica of St. Peter's, the Basilica of St. Paul's, Basilica of St. John of Lateran, yada, yada, yada. No, a basilica in Roman times is a public, official, administrative, multifunctional structure. Comes from the Greek word, anyone classics, basileus, king. And so a basilica is basically the king's hall. Now, the king's hall, we all want to have this nice big monumental thing in our name, in our honor, where we can also go and sit on a throne and welcome our people, greet our people, meet and greet the people of Rome in the Forum. Maxentius becomes an emperor at the end of the 3rd century AD. End of the 3rd century AD, bit of a restless period in Roman history. Maxentius takes the throne actually in 306, so right at the beginning of the 4th century AD. Maxentius takes the throne, should not have been an emperor. In order to justify his position, his rule, he builds a circus outside the walls of the city. He builds his own private villa outside the walls of the city. He builds many, many other things to the benefit of the people and his own name. And then right in the Forum, this is the first real building project since more or less Augustus. A massive structure built, I mean, there's an Arch of Septimius coming up, yes, 3rd century, but a real public building like this, finally, Maxentius builds his King's Hall right there. This is what you see, the 3 big arches and the wall to that side. That's just a side wall. It's not her name. And then right in the Forum, this is the first Well, I hear myself. Why? What's going on there? So we have, you're not walking into this, so to speak, but you have to imagine, use your imagination again, please. You have to imagine this wall mirrored to where the trees are, or rather were. There are no trees anymore nowadays. They've cut them all down. But imagine that structure to where the trees are as a mirror image. And that's the length, that's the axis of the building, with an entrance to the right and a semicircular apse, a semicircular wall to the left, where there was the throne of the emperor, and behind his throne, a statue of the man himself. Now, a gigantic structure. Also, look at the buttresses sticking out. This thing was higher. Yes, the buttresses are there to support it. And maybe the next slide, please, Pedro. Click. Yeah. So just to give you a better view of the whole thing, where buttresses supporting an upper floor, or in any case, a wall that would have gone higher, and then a vaulted ceiling all the way across from the right to the left. And basically as a throne room for the emperor. Maxentius shouldn't have been an emperor. Constantine comes along, shouldn't have been an emperor either, but kills Maxentius in 312 at the famous battle, during the famous battle at the Milvian Bridge on the 28th of October 312 AD. Constantine comes along and decides, I'm going to make this my basilica. So his throne is still there. Statue of Constantine, and you may all have seen this when you were visiting the Capitoline museums. This massive head of the Emperor Constantine, and a foot of the Emperor Constantine, and a hand of the Emperor Constantine, like this, his finger pointing up to the heavens. And if you look at the eyes of the emperor, then they're sort of like glancing towards the heavens above, because obviously Constantine, at the eve of the battle at the Milvian Bridge, had a vision of either a cross or the monogram of Christ, the chi, the Greek letter chi, and the rho, the first two letters of Christos. So Constantine had a vision, decided he was going to convert to Christianity. It became his own personal favorite religion, and then it just went boom. It became eventually the religion of the Roman Empire. With Christianity, the emperors have to look up. Constantine is looking up. Up to Constantine, emperors stare at you. It's the divine gaze of the emperor himself who looks at you, because the emperor is a god. Constantine could be a god anymore. Anyway, the importance of this building here. Constantine takes the Basilica of Maxentius and makes it his own as his throne room. He then, because the God of the Christians was favorable to him and made him win the battle at the Milvian Bridge, Constantine wanted to build a new temple, so to speak, to that new favorite God of the Christians, his own favorite God. He took the model of the Basilica and he built just on the other side of the Colosseum. We know this, you all still remember this. On the other side of the Colosseum, he built the Basilica of Christ the Savior, which is nowadays the Basilica of St. John of Lateran. On the property of the Laterani family, which was just sitting there, it was, well, not quite. There were some army barracks, which he razed to the ground. He had building ground right there, within the walls of the city, but not in the center, not in the forum. Constantine builds a new basilica, just like this one, almost, kind of. Nice little detail, those arches, the way Romans constructed arches with cement, with concrete. Very, very ingenious way of building. Pour the cement into a mold, take the mold away, and the arch is just standing there, sitting there. Because of the pressure on the sides of the arch, it's kind of pushing it inwards. And then that majestic technique of actually making these cassettes into the ceiling. It's like you can, I mean, this might not be very, very clear, but you've all been there, you know. These cassettes were pushed into the cement as an outward movement almost, for the arch to actually hold. But anyway, Constantine builds a basilica, and everyone in Rome goes, why? He just killed Maxentius. He took Maxentius's basilica, made it his own, says it's now Constantine's basilica, why is he building another one? And here's the genius of Constantine. Constantine built something which was large because he wanted something large. He needed something large because people have to move inside for his new temple. His new temple to his new favorite god, the God of the Christians, is a mystery. Christianity is a mystery cult. There are a few in the Roman Empire, but Constantine has to do something else. A pagan temple, the ones that we all know with the columns, and we'll see one coming up soon, but the pagan temples with all those nice little columns and nice little pediment and yada, yada, yada. That's the house of the god or the goddess, him or herself. You can't go in. And the altar is outside. You sacrifice outside a pagan temple. The new temple to the God of the Christians has to be different because it's a mystery cult. You're not supposed to know. You're not supposed to see what's going on in there because you have to go through the waters of baptism first. You have to be initiated, and then you can be part of the mystery. The mystery being bread and wine turning into body and blood of our God. Now, you want everyone inside. You also want everyone inside because Christianity is a religion of the book. You have, for the first time, you have a text, and God said, yada, yada, yada. You want people to hear. You want people to listen. A secluded space is much better than out in the open. Plus, it's a mystery cult, so not everyone can hear and understand and know, be part of this. No. So you have to go inside. Then the mystery, bread and wine turning into body and blood of Christ, who gave the ultimate sacrifice on the altar. So the altar is not so much let's bring in a bull or a sheep or chicken or some wine and sacrifice on the altar. No, on the altar is remembered and in a way reenacted with bread and wine, the ultimate sacrifice of our God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, Son, Jesus Christ, dying on the cross. That is what we celebrate on the altar. That's the mystery. That's what people are not supposed to see outside, but you have to be inside to be part of it. Christ, our God, Son of the Father, who comes down to us in bread and wine, Christ is our King, right? It's already foretold in the Old Testament. The Messiah, the King, King of Kings. Christ the King needs a king's hall, a basilica. And that's the only reason why Constantine decided to build a basilica as a temple for his new Christian God. God, Christ, is king, needs a king's hall. And so the Basilica of Maxentius in the Forum is kind of like it's a catalyst. It's a turning point. It gives the empire a boost again, but it's really, this becomes the model for the Christian church. Every church being built afterwards is a basilica for this particular reason. Anyway, next slide, please, Pedro. Thank you very much indeed. Time's running out because of our error in the internet connection. I do apologize. Oh, Temple of Antoninus and Faustina. And here's, you all know him, Fausto Vecchio. It's right here. I don't know. Okay, Faustina, Fausto. Yeah, sure, fine. It works. Next one, please. Good old Fausto. Yay. Who doesn't remember Fausto? Maybe. Well, yeah. Okay. It's next slide, maybe, because I think we're running out of time, right? So just let's move on to the slide. But here we are. Here's the temple to Antoninus and Faustina. Right here to the side, to the very right, with the Curia Julia, the Senate building in the back, and then that wonderful, wonderful monument of Victor Emmanuel II. I love it. But anyway, next slide, please. So then we can see better what's going on with this little temple here. Temple of Antoninus Pius, emperor from 138 to 161. Yeah, 138, 161, and his wife Faustina. It says right there on the facade, Divo Antonino, to the divine, to the god Antoninus, et divae Faustinae. So his wife must have been divine, beautiful. Ex SC, after a senatus consultum, a decision of the Senate, the emperor and his wife were deified. It takes a decision of the Senate to do that. You're not just, you might think, oh, I'm the emperor, I'm a god. No, the Senate needs to decide after you've gone. So you're not a god during your lifetime yet. Also, you got to wait, be patient. Emperor's like, oh, I'm a god. I know I am. I feel I am. Anyway, Senate decision makes you divine. They then built the temple. They dedicate the temple. Here you are, classical model, columns in the front, little beam on top, little pediment would have been, but then they had to build a church inside. So in the Middle Ages, but luckily they built a church inside because that's how a large part of the temple was actually preserved. Remarkable thing, that green door to the church, yay, we all know. No, maybe. How do you get in on a Sunday morning? You want to go to church, knock, knock, who's there? Me, I want to go to church. You can't because it's up there. Well, that green door, and also it may be difficult to see, but I'm sure you all remember from being there. You stand in front of this and you see that so like a fifth from the bottom up, there's this shade along the bottom part of those columns to the height also of the green door. That's actually ground level. Up to the last part, hi Janet, that's up to the last part of the 19th century when people started excavating. So the ground level, Rome collapsed, was rebuilt, collapsed, rebuilt, collapsed, rebuilt, layer over layer over layer. Finally, in the Middle Ages, you get up to that green door, all the way through to the 19th century. But anyway, little altar in the steps, that's what I just mentioned. Pagan temples, the altar is outside. Next slide, please. Pedro, next slide. Yes, Basilica Julia, next slide, please. The Basilica Julia. Again, a king's hall. And instead of having the moving image here, Pedro, yes, thank you, wonderful. What we just said about the Basilica of Maxentius and Constantine having a king's hall, same thing with Julius Caesar. He comes along, 1st century BC, aha, my name is Julius, I need a basilica. Why do you need a basilica, Julius? Do you want to be king? No, not me. I'm just a consul of Rome in 59. Then I'm a proconsul in Gaul. And I stay for 10 years so nobody can get to me. My political immunity in Gaul as a proconsul stays on. No one can prosecute me. No one can do me any harm. I'm still a politician protected by the state. 49, he wants to be consul again. People say you have to come back to Rome. He goes, not a good idea. I've done something which I shouldn't have done. Crosses the river Rubicon. And so civil war in Rome in the mid 1st century BC, in a nutshell. Just there's a lot of things actually happening. But Julius decides he wants to build his own king's hall without being a king. But then something gets in the middle. It's called the Ides of March, 44 BC, and he never gets to finish this whole thing. So then it is his adopted son, Octavian, who then becomes Augustus, who decides, my father, adopted father, my father needs a king's hall. So it is Augustus who finishes the Basilica Julia. Next slide, please, Pedro. Yay, click, click, click. Yeah, there you go. Again, the Basilica Julia in the front with the Curia Julia, the Senate building in the background. And I'm not going to say too much about the Basilica Julia because it's the same concept. It's a king's hall, just like the Basilica of Maxentius, who is then of Constantine. You meet and greet the people. You have your ruler sitting on a throne. Caesar liked to sit on the throne, even though he wasn't a king. But there you go. And it's that principle of using it as a court of law, using it to collect your taxes. a public building, multifunctional, administrative, a government building, basically. Then the Curia Julia in the back. Next slide, please. The Senate building of Rome, which burned down. Next slide, please. Yes, next slide, please. Which burned down when Octavian was trying to hold on to the power that his father left him. Burned down, and so finally it's Octavian becoming Augustus. During his first years of being an emperor, Augustus rebuilt the Roman Senate building as a gesture also. Look, people and Senate of Rome, I'm rebuilding the Senate of Rome. And I'm calling it after my father. Yes, because you killed him. You senators, you all killed him. 60 senators killed Julius Caesar, stabbed him 23 times. Some of them missed. But anyway, if you look at the Senate building, you see those three windows. Those three windows are at the original windows are at the same height as the green door in that temple of Antoninus and Faustina. That again is your medieval ground level, which up to the end of the 19th century was all covered, all buried. But it's also one of the reasons it was turned into a church. That's the main reason this was preserved. So we have a 1st century BC Roman building, still with a roof, still intact as a building. And it's sitting there and looking pretty right now. But of course, where the Roman Senate met. Next slide, please. And then we're nearing the end also of our tour. The Rostra, very, very important part of Roman democracy. The Roman Republic, believe it or not, had a lot of flaws, but in principle, the fact that people had to get up here and speak to the people and address the people and present their political programs to the people, laws, people of Rome. I'm a senator. I've got a few friends here with me. Gosh, you are 50,000 in the square in front of me. Okay, I have to be careful. So the speakers on the platform, on the Rostra, were basically presenting their ideas, but also testing the reactions of the people, the crowd in Rome, in the Republic. There's a great book, The Crowd in Rome in the Late Republic, actually, is one where you have that principle of, I speak, you the people, you hear, you shout boo, you start throwing tomatoes, whatever you want to throw. And I'm testing my policies here. And then we reach a compromise. And Rome, in essence, you can say, had very strong democratic elements under the Republic, which is a whole fascinating story. We could do a lecture series just on the Roman Rostra and its significance in Roman politics. Yes, Janet, maybe. So we can do this whole thing. But that's it for now. Next slide, please, because then we finish with that Arch of Septimius Severus right behind it, which is a, next slide, please, is a triumphal arch because it is, next slide, please. Yes, thank you. It is on the Via Sacra. That little road passing through the central arch is the Via Sacra. So this is a triumphal arch with the whole dedicatory inscription at the top. I, Septimius Severus, my two sons, Caracalla and Geta, and then Caracalla and Geta succeeded their father, Septimius, who was emperor from 193 to 211 AD, came from North Africa. In just a moment, you'll see kind of North Africa. But Caracalla and Geta took over from their father, and Caracalla killed his brother, who was inscribed in that third line from the bottom, that short indented line that you see in the inscription. The name Geta was there, but Caracalla killed his brother, and then we're like, well, let's get rid of the name also. So erased the name of Geta from the inscription, laid in a new layer of marble, changed the inscription, and it's just Caracalla in the inscription of this arch. Significant thing, kind of halfway up, was buried until the end of the 19th century. So you have all these wonderful images, these etches from Rome of the 19th century and earlier, and you just see the top part of the Arch of Septimius sticking out. Again, that medieval ground level is running halfway across the Arch of Septimius Severus. Next slide, please. Yep. Click. Arch of Septimius. Yes. Temple of Saturn to the left of it. But next slide. Yeah. I did want to take you here. It's not the Forum Romanum. This may not look familiar to you. Rome's far, far away. But just to say, everything you've always seen in the Roman Forum, everything you've seen in the city of Rome, everything you may have seen around Europe on your travels, every weekend, Thursday night, hop on a plane, off you go, somewhere in Europe, you probably came across Roman stuff. That looks all familiar to what you've just seen and what you've seen during your time in Rome. What most of you, maybe some of you, and there may be some people there who came to Tunisia with me, but and Dr. Waller also, back in the days, we did the Tunisia study trip in the spring break. What you see, or at least what I see, and I'm going to tell you, and then you will see too, is a layer of Roman cement right at the edge of the Sahara Desert. Yes, that's what you're looking into. It looks like Star Wars. True, it is Star Wars. This is where it was filmed, the whole thing, Luke Skywalker flying by. But to the left, halfway up from the bottom, or halfway down, halfway up, doesn't matter, you see that lighter bit of soil, like diagonally downwards. That rim is a layer of 2nd century AD Roman cement. That's where the Romans got to. Next slide, please, Pedro. Oh, yeah. Draw. Yep. No. Yeah. That bit. That's Roman cement. Next slide, please. And then, here we have lots of Roman rubble. And lots of really incredibly, and I am going to say it, sexy rubble. Because with this, you have to use all your imagination. What was here? Well, it was Roman. What have the Romans ever done for us? Aqueducts, sanitation, fortresses, possibly a Roman fortress, possibly a Roman villa, possibly a Roman town, right at the edge of the Sahara Desert, an oasis at the bottom of that hill, but then it's desert. That's how far the Romans went. That's where they took it, and that's where Roman civilization, starting in that forum, expands all over and takes over the entire world. Next slide, please. And then the sun setting over the Sahara Desert, where they say that Rome came to an end. They say that the sun set on the Roman Empire, and what a place to end it here. But it didn't, of course. The sun continued to shine upon Rome, and you all came to Rome, made it all your home. Rome never fell. Rome is still very much alive. We are all still very much alive in Rome and everywhere. And thank you very much. That's it.
Well said, Dr. Evers, and thank you so much. That was fantastic.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It was almost like being there, not quite, but almost.
Not quite.
Next best thing. So thank you so much. Thanks for hanging in with the technical difficulties. Oh, now I know why you're so good.
I need no. I was going to say I need a glass of wine right now because. Well, carry on. Sorry, I will pour this glass, but you carry on.
And cheers to you. That was wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Pedro, thanks for all your help. And to my fellow Rome Center alumni, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for hanging in during our technical difficulties. It looks like many of you found the Facebook Live link. For those of the alums that couldn't, we will share that out. And Pedro has asked me if you did join us from the Zoom event, if you can check in at the link in the comments on the Facebook Live page. Is that right? Is that what you want folks to do, Pedro? So on behalf of the Alumni Board, the Rome Center Alumni Board, I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in today. We are pleased to bring you some virtual programming throughout the year. We have our second annual Rome Center Trivia Night coming up in March, so we hope to see you for that. And this was just a lovely way to spend an hour on a snowy, cold Monday in Chicago. Hopefully the weather, yeah, the weather is better where some of you are, but I just think it's a wonderful way during a time when we're somewhat disconnected for all of us to come together and really share in the incredible experience that runs through all of us. And I was just so pleased to see in the chat that we had folks from classes all through the decades join us today, and we're all part of the same family. So thank you for continuing this work, and we look forward to seeing you at other events. Thank you again, Dr. Evers. It was so good.
That's why I brought the wine. I just wanted to raise a glass to all of you and thank you all. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Pedro, for all your help in making this possible. Yay. But also thank to all of you out there for your continuous support of the Rome Center, and particularly in these difficult times that not much going on right now, but yes, we are going. We keep on going and we keep strong, and we look forward to the future. So here's to all of you. Chin chin, and it's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world, so this is perfectly allowed. Cheers to all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.